Thank you, Victor, and thank you everyone for inviting me today. My name is Simone Boselli. I'm Public Affairs Director at EURORDIS, Rare Diseases Europe, which is the largest umbrella organization of patient organization representing people living with a rare disease in Europe. I would first like to thank Martina for such an insightful presentations on the regulatory landscape and highlighting some of the points that are of real concern to us. In particular, I would like to, in the course of the next few minutes, to highlight the role of patients in ATMPs, from the expectation to also our involvement in all along the life cycle of therapy development. In particular, if we go to the next slide, I wanted to highlight why this is relevant, particularly in rare diseases, which affect almost 30 million people in Europe. 72% of them are of genetic origin. And therefore, a focus on ATMPs, such as gene therapies, soon to be gene editing products, etc., it is of real importance because they represent a transformative potential addressing the underlying genetic causes of these diseases. And we've seen the difference that already the product on the market can make. And furthermore, many of them have onset in childhood. And obviously, it's a great opportunity to tackle many of the diseases that are currently underserved. It's no mystery to the people that are probably in here today that almost 94%, 95% of all rare diseases do not have an authorized therapy in Europe. Next slide, please. It's a very complex picture, in fact, because with the data and the evidence that we have available, we know for sure that much of the population of people living with rare diseases are affected by one of approximately 400 rare diseases that have a prevalence in between 1 and 5 in 10,000 people. But the greatest majority of rare diseases are affecting a population of less than 1 in 100,000 people, which makes development of therapies for this population a real challenge, particularly as highlighted by Martina, because of the intrinsic nature of rare diseases, which affects a small population with low number of patients. But not only that, in particular, the knowledge that is available for many of these patients in many of these diseases is still lacking. We have made impressive strides since the adoption first of the regulation on OIP, then pediatric medicine and ATMP, where EURORDIS has been at the forefront of that. And clearly, the greatest majority of the marketing authorization that are related to orphan medicine products, including ATMPs, which are primarily for rare diseases, is concentrated primarily in the more prevalent bracket, but with more ATMPs that are tackling the smaller or rarer of the diseases. Next slide, please. And we have a promising future. Despite what I might have seen in Martina's presentation, we still hold particular interest on a global level with a number of next generation therapies, such as gene editing, including CAR-T and cell therapies, that are continuously increasing and have increased in the last few years. However, this can be not short-lived, but certainly can have many challenges. In particular, we've seen in the recent year, I'd say, at least 2 products, as we know very well, Alexander, that have been withdrawn from the European market, ATMPs, tackling both relatively prevalent diseases such as beta thalassemia, but also as a consequence of lack of, well, I would say, a systemic challenge. Also, a second product that was about to be rolled out addressing cerebral leukodystrophy has left a lot of patients without any therapeutic option. So it is very important to make sure that the progress that we have made in the regulatory environment in Europe is matched with a predictable system at European level when it comes to timely access to patient, and I would add also equitable, as Tomislav Sokol added to. Next slide, please. As we see in this slide adapted from EMA, and also again Martina hinted at, we can see that from the implementation of the ATMP regulation back in 2009 to today, we have 20 products approved plus another 6 in course of approval. But also here you can say that in the years up to 2016, we only had 8 products available. And then since then, 12 more plus another 6 currently awaiting either a positive opinion or final EC regulatory approval. The change would have been the introduction of the PRIME scheme, which has focused up to 2021 in the 5 years report on 90, of which 44 were ATMPs, and 56% of them would tackle rare diseases. It is important to note that in the products that are listed here, we have a lot of products that are addressing critical unmet needs and are completely transforming the standard of care and the life expectancy of the patient. Next slide, please. As patients, we are involved at every single stage of or would like to be involved in every single stage of ATMP development. From research, not only we are providing our own bodies to research in order to find potential transformative options and life-saving options specifically for our community, but also in even driving research and collecting funding to do so, even funding our own companies. In this case, for example, we look at initiatives such as the AFM Teleton and Geneton in France, but also the Fondazione Teleton in Italy, which are behind some of the ATMPs that I've approved. We are involved, as I said, in the financing, but another point that I think was raised by Martina is the challenges in actual development of these therapies. Here, the financing of both basic research and going into the platforms that are needed to be addressed is of incredible importance, as well as financing the infrastructure and the quality of the infrastructure of the center of excellence that are delivering therapies. On the authorization point, from what Martina again has explained, I think in Europe we have quite a solid yet flexible regulatory framework with some issues to be addressed, particularly to render the European market as attractive as possible once the authorization is done. And in particular, the hiccups that Martina hinted to are very much related to data collection and reduction of uncertainty, given the relatively small population and data sets that are coming to authorization, which might be good for the efficacy and safety of the product, but do not shed enough light on the potential long-term impact. In this case, we also are involved, and here is a horizontal team in both data provision and collection, as once there is marketing authorization on this most likely one-off treatment, patients are required to be monitored and to follow up on our treatment for a very long term. Post authorization safety study could go up to 15 years of follow-up. Therefore, there is a lot to do, but our system are not necessarily geared up for that type of collection data. This said, since 2017, we also have the European Reference Network, which are equipping themselves with the necessary tools, not only to transfer knowledge, provide early and timely diagnosis for complex cases, but also to collect disease-relevant data, including the effect of certain therapy. And that goes back, that goes into the assessment part, which was again into that before. Not only health technology assessment processes are not always geared up for the proper assessment of one-off therapies, but the level of patient involvement is not equal at the same time. Therefore, the patient community in many areas, in many small areas, is very innovative. And I would like to remind you that in the rare disease community, we always strive to be at the forefront of innovation, not only in therapy development, but how we monitor it. And therefore, we also look at how to correctly assess the real world evidence gathering of the impact of this one-off therapy. And lastly, but not less importantly, the access part. Given the transformative and life-saving potential of some of these treatments, it is unacceptable that in this day and age, every single citizen in Europe might be able and eligible for such a therapy cannot access it. We need to fix the ongoing challenges provided by the healthcare, cross-border healthcare provisions, try to streamline them, making sure that the access is done at a supranational level, or at least agreed upon a supranational level to start with, and then purchased according to the purchasing power of individual countries until, and this is our hope, we could approach this from a European level. Next slide, please. And that's how we would like to move forward in a new life cycle perspective on access to rare disease therapies, including ATMP, from a, let's say, passive and reactive process based on also a price set with limited evidence and ex-ante assessment on value based on a level of evidence often insufficient to perform a stringent effective assessment, but to a future where we do shape our research horizon, looking at how to drive investment in underserved areas, but to look at also early dialogues and early touch points in how the value of a therapy can be quantified in clinical practice, all the way to having a full impact following authorization, assessment, and appraisal, to view the full impact of the innovation that has been introduced. And with this, I would like to thank you very much for your time, and happy to have any questions.